Alright, so you may be wondering how I got here. You know what? Back up. Let me start earlier. Oh, okay. Nope, that's too far. Well, oh, you know what? Also, that's definitely not right. Because I shot that part a few days ago, and that other part was a month. Nope, shit. So, it's hard to juggle multiple timelines on the same knife. Oh, okay, I don't know who's in control here, but no, that's gross. Totally different knife and video. You know what? Shh, let's start over. Okay, how about now? Now is great. It's a great timeline. The best timeline. Today's review is for the Great Eastern Cutlery Bull Buster Old Guy Knife. Old Guy knives often don't have locks, don't use stainless steel blades, or have pocket clips. However, do include such features as lectures on tradition, stories about when men were men, demonstrations on better ways to use your knives, and hearing loss. But before we go any further, let's take a look at the dimensions with real measurements and also the metric system, starting with the overall length and weight. Okay, that was rude. The knife occasionally makes me say things like that. And weight with the DP steel and leatherwork clip slip. A heretical option, of course. The blade size and cutting edge, which comes nice and dull from the factory, just like they did back in the day. Handle size and grip area. However, that was intentional, so you could practice your freehand sharpening. Spine thickness and handle thickness. Of course, I didn't mean practice. You're already better at it than everyone else. Tallnesses. And I can appreciate your pointers in the comments, which are truly the less inspiring TED Talks of freehand sharpening tips on the YouTube commenting sections of knife reviews. So, Great Eastern Cutlery is one of the few makers of USA-made old guy style knives left. I think there's Case and Baron Sons and maybe M-Tech. I don't know if Buck makes their slip joints in the USA, but that's for you to research a little further and explain in the comments below. GEC has a lot of models, and the one I like the most is the Sod Buster pattern seen here. I believe they have a smaller version of it, but let's start with the blade. A drop point flat grind made from good old rusty if you let it 1095 carbon steel. As I mentioned earlier, it wasn't super sharp out of the box. What about 10 minutes on the not freehand sharp maker, starting with the diamond stones, gave it a decent enough for me edge. Occasionally people ask me, how do I know when it's sharp? Well, my unscientific method is the feeling of a microcut on the top layer of my, the tips of my fingers. That's how I know it's sharp. The blade is a good size, over my size requirements for an everyday carry, and is fairly easy to pull. 5, 6. I don't usually use the thumb nick, just the pointer finger and the thumb. It's two-handed, of course. As an aside, because I occasionally get this comment, when you press the blade against your leg or other object to close it, I don't consider that one-handed. Also, not one-handed if it's incredibly awkward and unsafe to close with one hand because you're being a smart ass. Open is two-stage. There's a click at 90 degrees and then one at the fully open. The blade doesn't lock, but the back spring is fairly strong, like the smell of butterscotch and mothballs. Handles on larger Sod Buster patterns like this are nice and neutral, with not much of a front finger guard. However, there's room for larger, more tactical hands than mine, as there are a lot out there. And another bonus, there's a wonderful brass lanyard hole in the back that's sleeved for your sculpture art. The handle that houses the lanyard hole is smooth and comfortable pretty much everywhere. Maybe not a ton of grip in the wet, but just grip tighter and man up, The micarta is polished, and I found when wiping off, I got some apple juice on it. Not like the juice, but, juice from an apple. Well, when I rubbed off the juice, the micarta starts to fade a little. I never noticed dye in my hand, but it's, something to think about if you're one of those people who thinks a lot about things they shouldn't much. And of course there isn't a pocket clip, because one of the unspoken pleasures of owning a traditional knife is having 4 inches sitting sideways in the bottom of your pocket with your change and peppermint candies. I get it, but I like my knives sitting in the top of my pocket like most people nowadays. Slightly easier to access and less likely to be confused with an erection. So there's nice leather clip slips available from DP Leatherworks, of whom I've linked in the description, the store, and his Instagram. It's cost me about $60 shipped from, let's call it Germany, I'm pretty sure. And they're handmade to order in a lot of different colors. This is the larger of the two sizes, and a lot of people use this for the $110, so bless their heart. Comparisons. First up, the Bull Buster, a great knife right after you give it a nice sharp edge that costs about $60. I know it doesn't lock, but there are still a lot of things you can do safely with the slip joint. Because, locking pocket knives weren't really popular until the 1980s. Alright, what about the Buck 110? Yeah, here it is. There's nothing really wrong with this knife other than it being twice as heavy as a similar sized Sod Buster. It's a very popular knife that people post on Reddit. Oh, I found this in my grandpa's attic. My mom said he carried it in the jungles of Normandy. But since a lot of 110s have symbols on the blade denoting the age, someone else comes along and says, that's actually a 1995 110. Which of course your grandpa bought to play a mean trick on you in the age of posting every bit of your life on social media. And by the time this sentence is done, someone has posted below that 110s weren't World War II era knives. And that social media wasn't around in 1995. Thank you. Now the case Sod Buster. This one costs about half as much as the GEC, but it's very similar in quality. Both came kinda dull, like a knife video, as the Lord intended, and have a similar fit and finish and hand feels. The Bull Buster looks a bit nicer, and it's still a pretty fair price at $62, $65, something like that. I prefer both of these over the 110 as well, just in case you were wondering. Now the Spyderco Paramilitary 2. A good modern reference knife. This is about the perfect pocket knife in terms of functionality, size, weight, and good materials. It's a bit pricey now at $120 to $190, depending on options or when they raise their prices like they do almost every year. I mean, something has to subsidize those $500 production knives. I guess, higher prices and sprint runs. There's always sprint runs. But good if you could just have one gateway knife. Now a modern slip joint, the Boker Slack. This was one of the hardest pulls and closes of my slip joint. I prefer something a bit easier and safe like the Bull Buster. Still, it's nice, well made, about $100. It's only VG10, so gouging you a little there, like the clip point gouges your palm when you push it closed. Alright, one last knife, the Budget K55K Mercator. It's, locks, there's that. It's thin in the pocket and has a carbon steel blade too. Runs you about $30 and has unique looks. Nothing wrong with this knife. There is also a clipped version available from, I believe, one website on the internet in the US. So let's continue our story, and by that I mean end it. Okay, so it's not smart to baton with slip joints, but it does fill precious time and space in video in my B-roll. I should ask this guy if it counts as testing, here. I just want to make him happy, as happy as he gets when he's drinking his miracle mineral solution, because I guarantee you he does. Now, I said in a video recently, the most common points of failure on my knives, other than the reviews themselves, have been the metal parts and never the FRN or, G10 handles. Sometimes it's aluminum handles, other times it's the brass pins like here, and occasionally it's the edge of the blade or a small metal screw, but always because I hit those parts with a piece of wood. So this reinforces an existing opinion I had. Smacking knives with pieces of wood repeatedly is really good and fun. However, I sent it back to GEC, and they replaced the brass pin that the spring pivots on. A lot of this review has been filmed after I got it back from warranty, but the point of the story is, GEC, I promise to never baton with this slip joint again. This slip joint. And in summation, for people who need it, the GEC Bull Buster is a favorite knife of mine. This and the Lion Steel CK01 are my two favorite slip joints. Are they modern slip joints? Well, technically, they're both newer companies, but I would not hesitate to recommend the Bull Buster to your grandpa or your grandma, or maybe an old uncle, or a young guy with sleeves and an ironic mustache, although I'm not any of those things, but I still like it. If you like this sort of review, please subscribe, buy my t-shirts below the video. Apologies for not posting a video last week. I was at a wedding out of town. Say hi to all my lovely patrons. Check out my links below. Follow me on Instagram. Comment. Give this video a thumbs up in case I gave you all a little something that we knew you lacked. Thanks for watching.